What's up? In this video, I want to go over the basics of graphing logarithms. I want to kind of introduce the logarithm to you, make sure you have a firm understanding of it, and then go through a couple examples. So therefore, if you have like on your homework or maybe even a test or a quiz, you have to be able to graph a logarithm, you're going to have some built-in confidence. So let's start with understanding the logarithm as well as how to apply that to a graph. All right. Now, a lot of times when we are first talking about logarithms, we talk about when it's base 10, right? A lot of times we don't write the base 10 and we have it there, but I don't want to start there. And then sometimes we even go with the natural logarithm, which is going to be base E. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to start there either. Where I want to start is when we have a logarithm that is to the base 2. Why base 2? Because ladies and gentlemen, base 2 is the easiest way for us, in my opinion, to understand a logarithmic expression. But logarithms, the log, is confusing as well. Like, students sometimes just see logarithm and they're like, this is too hard, this is confusing, I always mix it up. So rather than dealing with a logarithm in logarithmic form, a lot of times what I like to do is rewrite it or to understand it in exponential form. So if I was to take this logarithmic equation and rewrite it in exponential form, I would take my base, that's going to be the base of your exponent, raise it to my y, and that's going to equal the argument of my x. Now, this is really, really important because 2 raised to y is equal to x. I can write a relationship based on some numbers that I know fit this equation. For instance, I know that 2 to the 0 power is equal to 1. I could do 2 to the first power is equal to 2. I could do 2 to the second power is equal to 4. Now, again, I could keep on going in with positive numbers, but what about if I did some numbers that are smaller than -1? What about if I went from 2 to the negative first power? What would that be? Now, remember our rules of exponents. If I have like x raised to the negative a, right, that's going to be 1 over x to the a. So 2 to the -1 is equal to a 1 over 2 to the first power, which is just 1/2. And then if I did a 2 to the negative second power, that would be a 1 over a 2 squared. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to equal to a 1/4. However, it's kind of important to understand, ladies and gentlemen, remember what these exponents equal in this exponential form, those are going to be my x's. Those are my input values. Because here's the thing, when we need to graph a logarithm, right? A lot of times we start with the table of values. But when we learned like table of values for like linear equations or quadratics, what do? We created a table of values that looked something like this. So we had like our x and our y, right? We'd say like x, y. But then we'd pick values like a -2 and a -1 and a 0 and a 1 and a 2. Right? But if you were to use those numbers for our logarithmic equation, you'd be absolutely confused. And I'll get to that just a little bit later in the video. But first of all, let's go and further explore what these represent, what these values represent to create my table to ultimately create the shape of the graph that I'm looking to achieve. So remember, 2 raised to this power, those represent my y coordinates. What the values of that equal are going to be my x coordinates. So I don't want to start with a table of values over here. I want to start it with a table of values that represent these powers that I just created using just a basic understanding of a base raised to a power, right? So if I think about these, all these answers are going to be my x values, and the power is going to represent my y value. So let's start with the smallest one. If I had a 1/4, that represents my x value, right? And the y value is going to be a -2. If I go to my x value over here, that's going to be a 1/2, and my y value would be a -1. Then let's go to the next smallest number, which would be 0. So if I plug in a 0, I'm going to get a 1. If I plug in a 1, I'm going to get a 2. And I'm sorry, Mr. McLogan. If you plug in a 2, that's going to be a 1. I was mixing up my x and y's, right? You got to be careful mixing up your x and y's. Silly, Mr. McLogan. So remember, 2. That represents the x value, right? So 2 and 1. So I have a 2 and a 1. And then my last one is a 4 and a 2. Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, we can just go ahead and plot these points, right? Put them on there. That's going to be the exact graph of log base 2 of x. But here's the cool thing that I want you to understand. Like, yeah, you can go and plug in those points, and there's not a problem with that. Log base 2 of x, right? And that graph is going to look something like this. I'm not going to spend the time graphing them because you could easily create your own graph paper and do that, okay? I want to go over the important characteristics, and I also want to relate that to log base 10 of x as well as log ln of x, because we know when we need to graph logarithms, we're not always going to have the same basis. But here's the cool thing, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter. Okay. Are those graphs exactly the same? No, there are going to be some variations of it. But what is always going to be the same? Well, what's always going to be the same is my x-intercept is always going to be 1, 0. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the only way that I can get my argument to be 1 is for that power to be 0, right? E raised to the 0 is 1. 10 raised to the 0 is 1. No matter what number you raise it to the 0 power is always going to give you 1. So I don't care what the base is. I know my logarithm is always going to have a x-intercept of 1, 0. Now, again, that's before transformations, but the graph is going to look like this. What also are all three of these graphs going to have is going to be a vertical asymptote at x equals 0. Now, where did this vertical asymptote come from? Like, why are we now talking about vertical asymptotes? Well, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the numbers that I chose for my table, why didn't I choose negative numbers? Because, ladies and gentlemen, again, I can't find a value for y that I would raise 2 raised to that's going to now give me a negative number, right? We just went through positive and negative numbers. 2 to the 0 is 1. 2 to the 1 is 2. But if you start using negative numbers for y, like 2 to the negative 1, you're still getting a positive 1/2. Now, again, remember, what these exponents are equal to are your x values. Those are actually your inputs. So there's no number I can take 2 to, raise it to that power, and that's going to give me a negative number. So what that means is I cannot take the logarithm of a negative number. And that's why this graph is for all positive values. In the same argument, I cannot raise 2 to a number to get the number 0. 2 to 0 is equal to 2 raised to the 0 power is 1. I cannot raise 2 to a power that's going to give me 0. All right. That's why we have this vertical asymptote. This graph is going to keep on getting closer and closer and closer to 0, but it's never going to touch it. It's always going to be continuing approaching it. So x cannot equal 0, as well as x cannot be for negative numbers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is only for our parent functions. And again, I don't care what the base is, right? It's all going to have a general shape of this. Yes, it will vary a little bit on, how fast and how slow it's growing because of the base, but the characteristics of this is going to be exactly the same. My domain is going to be 0 to infinity. I have an x-intercept of 1, 0, and a vertical asymptote at x is equal to 0. Now, let's get over to the next thing that you absolutely need to know, and that is going to be our transformations. Now, a lot of times we like to jump right into the transformations, but when we're understanding transformations, I always like to start with quadratics. Y equals a times x minus h, quantity squared plus k. If you remember this, ladies and gentlemen, this was the vertex form for a quadratic. Remember, h, k represented our vertex, a stretched or compressed our graph, h shifted it left or right, k shifted it up or down, right? And a lot of students, we've spent a lot of time with this, they get familiar with this, and hopefully it should be something that you're relatively confident into as we're now talking about logarithms. But here's the cool thing about transformations with functions. They're all the same. Now, I'm not going to use h and k. I'm going to use some different letters if that's okay with you, because again, remember, h and k just represent integers, all right, or real numbers in this case. So I'm going to use c and d. And the reason why is because when we talk about transformations with other functions, we often like to use our x and c to represent those transformations. But just like with h and k, they represent the exact same. C is going to be a horizontal shifter left or right. D is going to be that vertical shift up or down. And A is going to be that vertical stretch or compression, as well as a reflection about the x-axis. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at a logarithm and we recognize what the values are A, our C, or our D, then we know we can apply those transformations to this parent graph to go ahead and get our graph. And that's what I want to do with you. I just want to go over some basic examples of problems that we can kind of work through to see, like, hey, do I know how to do this? Can I apply the transformations? Can I identify the correct domain to make sure that we're good to go? So let's just go over some basic ones. And don't worry, at the end of this video, I have some opportunities where you can further understand logarithms and graphing logarithms. So therefore, you're not just, no matter what problem your teacher gives you or that you need to know for a test or quiz, you're going to be ready prepared. So let's just go through a couple examples. So if I had y equals a log base 5 of x, I like giving different bases because, again, students will get confused on this. 5 is not my vertical, it's not a stretch or compression, it's not a shift, it's just the base. So I know this graph is actually going to be really easy. My x-intercept is at 1, 0, and my vertical asymptote is going to remain the same. My domain is going to be from 0 to infinity. Easy. It's good to go. Let's go and look at another one. What about if I had, oh, actually, did I write that? I wrote that one down wrong. Where is that? Oh, that was a negative 7. There you go. Okay. What about if I have a y equals a negative log base 7 of x? So again, in this case, we have our exact same parent graph, right? So we have this graph. It's going to look like this, but now we have a negative on the outside. What is that negative on the outside going to do? That is a reflection about our x-axis, which is right here. So all I'm going to do is just redraw the graph like this. My domain is going to be unchanged. My vertical asymptote is also going to remain unchanged, and my domain is going to remain unchanged. All I'm simply doing is taking this graph and reflecting it about the x-axis. Now let's go to the next one, which would be 3. And for this one, let's do y is equal to a log base 3 of negative x. Okay. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, if you can remember, a negative on the outside of your function is a reflection about the x-axis, then a negative on the inside of the function is a reflection about your y-axis. But this one is actually a really, really important transformation because this is actually going to impact my x-intercept as well as my domain. So if I go ahead and graph my parent function, it's going to look something like this. But now if I go ahead and reflect this about my y-axis, my vertical asymptote is not changing, right? That's about the same. But now what I want you guys to see is my x-intercept has now changed to negative 1, 0, and x-intercept to negative 1, 0, and now my domain is from negative infinity to 0. All right, last example, and this one we'll do with some horizontal shifts. So in this case, let's do ln, the natural logarithm, and let's do a x plus 1 plus 1. I like this one. The reason why I like this one is because, again, some students just remember, oh, it's negative 1, so it's shifting to the left. They remember its opposite transformations inside the function compared to outside the function. But there's one thing actually I like to discuss with my students, especially when we're first learning about transformations. And this could be something that we tackle with like radicals or even in logarithms. If I was to look at this, I'd say y equals a ln. If I was looking at my transformations, let's actually go back through my transformations. So if I was going to have a times a, let's just go back to log, times a x minus c plus d. Oh, crap. Sorry about that, guys. I knew I was a little bit off. Let's move this over. There you go. Okay, so here's the equation that we have. Here is our transformations that we use to understand them. Again, it doesn't matter if it's natural logarithm, logarithm base 10, logarithm base 20, doesn't matter. The a, c, and d are the most important thing. But what I want to further discuss with you is this value of c. If I put c inside the parentheses, what I want you to recognize is c is positive. That's telling me why it's a shift to the right. It's the formula for my transformations are x minus the quantity c. Now you might look at this and say, well, Mr. McLogan, can I just put parentheses around the 1 and then it would be positive? Yeah, but it's not in the form of x minus c. So how can I rewrite a x plus 1 into a x minus c? Well, what we need to do is use the double negative. In this case, I can see ln of x minus a negative 1 plus 1. Now I can put this negative 1 inside the parentheses, right? So it's x minus c, but notice my c is equal to a negative 1. That's going to tell me I'm shifting this graph 1 unit to the left. So that's why when we have x plus 1 inside the parentheses, it's shifting the graph 1 unit to the left. And then also I'm going to shift the graph 1 unit up. Now again, remember, as long as you know what the transformations are, of the parent function and the transformations, then you can quickly and easily go ahead and graph this. So if I have this point of 1, 0, right, of my y-intercept, there's my parent graph, and then I have that nice little vertical asymptote going right here, all I simply need to do is apply the transformations to my x-intercept. So in this case, I'm shifting it 1 unit to the left and then 1 unit up. Now my horizontal or vertical asymptote doesn't really matter if I'm shifting anything left or right, but it does matter if I shift it 1 unit to the left. So now I'm going to take that graph and shift it 1 unit to the left. I know my graph is not aligning to the graph paper. I know, I'm sorry. But again, my x-intercept 1 unit to the left and then 1 unit up. So now that graph would look something like that. And that's important because when I shift this graph to the left, or when I did a horizontal reflection, that impacted my domain. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things that I did not cover about graphing logarithms. I wanted to go over the basics in this video. But one of the things I talk with my students all the time about logarithms is when we have something that looks like this, the bx minus c plus d, because that's very important. And that incurs a lot of other transformations that we didn't actually even have time to go over in this video. So if you want to understand how to graph something like that, or with more difficult transformations, then check out the playlist or the video I have for you here. Cheers.